aircraft instruments and gauges. In this video, I'm going to show you the different areas on the panel and what those areas pertain to, how we describe them and things like that. So our first one we're going to talk about is the radio stack here, our avionics. That's all right here. We have our audio panel right here. This is our Navcom 1 right here. This is Navcom 2. This is our transponder right here. And we'll go into all these in detail later on. And then down here we have our autopilot right there. Further over to the right, we have our ADF receiver right here. We have our Hobbs meter right here. And this is our ELT or emergency locator transmitter switch. Okay, over to the left here, we've got our navigation instruments right here. These are CDIs that are used for doing approaches and doing long-range navigation. We have an annunciator panel right here. This right here just tells us if there's any, issues with the engine. It's basically idiot lights for the from a car. You have those little lights those little icons that light up in case there's an issue with the a car engine or something like that. That's where you're going to see that in the annunciator panel. Very important here, we have the N number of the aircraft. So this would be November 172 Sierra Papa. We use a phonetic alphabet to pronounce that. And then let's go down here a little bit more. So this right here these are our flight instruments. And we've talked about these in prior lessons. If you haven't, you can check out one of I think it's lesson 3 in the lesson plans there. But we talk about the various flight instruments. And that just shows us essentially what the aircraft, the attitude of the aircraft, the direction it's flying in, the altitude, whether it's climbing or descending. And then also here, our quality of our turn. Okay, and then here we have our very important instrument. This is our engine RPM. So this just tells us how much power, or in other words, how much thrust the engine is producing. So we'll use that there, obviously, in flight. Okay, over here we have our engine instruments. This just tells us, how well the engine is performing, how efficient it's performing. Above that, we have our clock, which is also used to identify the voltage that our system, or the engine, is producing for the aircraft. It also has a built-in timer and a lapse timer, and it has an outside air temperature gauge. If we just tap that button, we can see what the outside air temperature is. Okay, below all that, we have circuit breakers right here, and there's several different circuit breakers on this Cessna 172. We've got them here, and then there's a couple over here. And in some cases, you may, not in all aircraft, but you may see other circuit breakers that may be located under the panel here, or possibly, on a floor hatch there. You may open it up and see circuit breakers in there as well. But those are the main ones in there. Here we have our starter. Our mag switch, you can switch from right to left mag, both mags, and that mag stands for magneto, and we get into that again later on. And then that the starter right there. Our master switch just turns on the power for the aircraft. It also energizes the alternator field so it can produce power to charge the battery. And then here we have a whole series of switches for the aircraft that we would use in flight. Fuel boost pump right there, a beacon, landing light right there, taxi light, nav lights, those are the little lights on the wings and the tail there, and then the strobe light here. Then finally we have the pitot heat, that's pronounced pitot. And that just turns on a little heater for the pitot tube that's on the wing of the aircraft. It also turns on a heater for the stall warning indicator, the sensor there on the wing itself. We've got our avionics master switch right here. And notice it's a split switch. We have a bus 1 and a bus 2 there. Okay, here we've got just lights for the aircraft itself, for the internal side of the aircraft, the panel lights. We've got pedestal lights, which pedestal refers to this down here. You can adjust the lighting down there for that. Obviously, this right here is our throttle right there. And we've got our mixture control right there. This is our flap control and indicator right there. And then we've got our environmental controls right here. We can turn on heat or increase cabin air there. Further down now, as we go down the aircraft to the floor here, we're going to see, actually, I'm just going to lower it down a little bit because there's a couple of items that you may not see here. So this right here is for our alternate static air. And again, we'll talk about that later on, but if you do need to use alternate static air, you'll just pull that little knob out. This is our trim wheel right here. We go to that later on. This is a mic. It's not used in the sim, but this is how we pick that up. In the old days, we would talk through that mic. We didn't have headsets. Nowadays, almost everybody flies with a headset. But if you didn't have a headset, you could use this mic to talk to air traffic control. The fuel shutoff valve is right here. If that's pulled out like this, it's going to cut off any fuel to the engine. Obviously, we wouldn't want to do that in flight unless we had a fire or something like that, but typically that's going to be pushed in most of the time. If you're parking the aircraft, you can pull that out though to shut off the fuel flow there. And then let's see, let's go up here. Whoops. Right, so let's raise our seat here. So now if we look down here, we've got our fuel selector valve here. This is going to allow us to switch to a different tank. We can move that selector to the left tank, only left wing tank, or the right wing tank. And that may be useful if for some reason maybe one tank is burning more fuel than the other and the aircraft becomes a little imbalanced. We can adjust that there for the to balance out the aircraft itself. And then finally down here we have our rudder pedals here. One thing that's important to point out here is this little device right here, this little lever, that's our brake, our parking brake itself. And how it works is, let me see if I can do this here for you. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll unpause the sim here. All right. So to turn on the parking brake, we just pull that out. We're flying right now, so it's not going to do anything. All it does is it applies brakes to the wheels itself there. So, and we just turn it on and off by clicking on it. That is in the on position. This is off, so there's no brakes there. All right, that covers it for the various areas on the panel and describing some of the instruments. We're going to be going into a deep dive on all of these different items here, so you'll know how to use all of this stuff here. So stay tuned, and we'll talk to you soon.